that honestly, I've only taught a handful of times. It was something that I discovered years ago just in my research with yoga, and it's called the five Tibetan rites. Now, I'm going to talk about the five Tibetan rites before we get into the practice, just so that you have a little history and knowledge about it and have a little bit more awareness of why we're going to be doing this. So, the five Tibetan rites is something that Tibetan monks have been doing for over 2,500 years. And it is taken from yoga, even though it's called the five Tibetan rites. And there are some things that are a little bit different, but it uses the concept and philosophies that back up yoga. And I'll explain that later. But this kind of came out into the Western world in, I believe, the early 1940s. There was a British colonel who had been overseas and had been in Asia for a while and had learned about this practice. And then he came back. I think either he was vacationing or living at that time in California. He was sharing his knowledge about this to someone else. And I can't remember if it was the colonel or the person that he taught ended up writing a book about it. This is something that yogis eventually discover on their path somehow. And I know that because there's been a few people at other points where I've taught this practice that had known about it or were starting to practice on a regular basis. And I have a student in Mount Juliet right now who comes to class kind of randomly, but he's really interested in yoga and he does a lot of reading on the side concerning yoga. And he discovered the five Tibetan rites. And he came bouncing into the studio a couple months ago telling me that he had started doing this daily. And that's what the monks do. They do this daily. It's considered or called the fountain of youth. It's said to be anti-aging. I think anything's going to be anti-aging if you're taking care of yourself. So this is basically kind of a self-care routine. Now, there's five different exercises that we do, and they don't flow, meaning it's not like a sun sal where you're lifting up, you're folding down. And I mean, there is a flow element, but it's basically two different positions that we'll be doing in the final four. So I wanted to share with you some of the benefits besides it considered the fountain of youth. It helps to improve circulation. It helps to improve sleep. It helps to reduce anxiety. It helps with building strength and flexibility. And the last thing is it helps to improve your vitality and energy. So we're going to be on our backs for the first bit, just calming, centering, breathing. We'll get up and stand and do the five Tibetan rites. Well, we'll be up and down actually. And then we're going to do restorative after that. Now, the last thing I want to say to you about this, these Tibetan rites are typically done 21 times. Now, 21 of these is not gentle. So in the studio that I just left this morning, we did 14, but that was a slow flow practice. Now we're in gentle. So in gentle, we're just going to do a third. We're going to do 7 total. And we'll go slow and I'll describe it. So let's start on our backs. And the first thing I want you to do is place your right hand on your abdomen and your left hand over your heart. We'll let your arms hang down to the floor so there's no effort required for your arms or shoulders. And then determine, is it better for your low back for the feet to be together or apart? And some people really enjoy bending the knees, doing a little scooping of the belly, a little tucking of the tailbone to elongate the low back more. And that will also secure it to the floor. Once you have your body positioned, close your eyes, start your breath work. And as you're breathing in a deep diaphragmatic way, notice with your hands resting on your body, whether or not it's your belly or your chest that rises first. There's no right or wrong to this as long as you're feeling movement in both places. Some lineages teach to allow the belly to expand in the chest. And there's other lineages that teach allow the chest to rise and then the belly. Either way, it's demonstrating a diaphragmatic breath. So continue to open up your lung capacity. Set your intention to execute this movement in a way that's going to work for you. I'll teach you a couple modifications along the way. Now I want you to extend your arms overhead and have the arms kind of shaped like the top of a Y. Hands much wider than shoulder distance, palms facing upward. And notice how it changed up the feeling in your chest. The arms extending not only extends the back, but notice around the breastbone, that area often gets concaved or collapses when the shoulders are tight, when we're subconsciously protecting the heart, or have poor core strength or back strength. Let's take 3 more breaths this way. Let's just do a little warm up while we're here on the ground. Let's pick up the feet, draw the knees in, and catch the shins or feet with your hands for happy baby pose. Sometimes just catching the shins or feet is enough. Sometimes we need a little bit more. And if that's the case, just pull and tug down on your lower body. And that will deepen the stretch in the hips. Take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, release your feet. Let them kind of flop down. Knit your knees together and cradle your arms around your legs for the wind release pose. Please don't hug or squeeze too tight. A little is enough. But affirm here as you hold, I reduce my scattered forces to rise up and away into the sky. Now let's lower the feet to the floor, place your arms down, palms facing down, roll the outer arms down and push into your feet. When you lift to Setu Bandhasana, keep your knees narrow. Keep your glutes really firm and tight. See if you can lift your chest a little bit more in the direction of your chin. Try to maintain this hold for 3 more breaths. Now that you've been firing at the back body, contract your core, lower down one vertebra at a time. And then fly the feet up when you land your sacrum. So you're in this pose, like a 90-degree angle. It's really staff pose, but we're on the back, and we'll do the regular staff pose as part of the 5 Tibetan rites. So this pose is also great for circulation. All right, on your next exhale, you're only lowering your right foot. As you inhale, cross your left ankle over the right knee. And you can either be here or you can exhale, pick up your right foot, lace your hands behind your thigh and hug in. Eye of the needle pose. You're in control of how much or little you give yourself. Remember, this is a great pose for relieving sciatica, sciatic nerve pain, SI joints, discomfort. All right, extend your right leg, point the foot, and then start to rotate your ankle. Circling it one way, the other way. And then land your right foot. Pick up your left foot, send it skyward, and then pick up your right foot alongside it, coming back to this modified version of waterfall. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, land your left foot. As you inhale, cross the right ankle over the left knee. Determine if you need to be here. If not, exhale, pick up your left foot. Hug in. Sometimes this pose is called figure 4 or half pigeon. Cross, compare the two sides without judgment. Inhale, extend your left leg, point your foot. And then start to circle round and round. And then the opposite way. All right, let's go ahead and descend the left foot, then the right. Let's roll over to one side of the body, push down into the top hand up. We're going to do one more warm up. So you can sit cross-legged for this one. The arms are going to reach up overhead. The fingertips are going to lace and then pump the wrist skyward. All right, if this is ever too much for your body, you can always do this and this, right? Simplify it. But we're going to try to keep the hands laced and lean to one side. Inhaling up, exhale to the other. Inhaling up, exhale, you're going to twist to the right when you separate your hands. I won't be mirroring you. The left hand can hook a hold of your foot, shin, or knee. Release the hands and inhale, fly them back up as you rotate to face the screen. And as you exhale, you're going to spin the other way. So the left hand will go behind your back, ideally at the space or behind your tailbone. And the right hand, hold foot, shin or knee. Winding your way into the twist and maintaining the hold, but allowing the breath to flow. And then exhale, unwind. Okay, I think we're ready for the 5 Tibetan rites. The first one is standing. And I'm seeing I'm getting my head cut off a little bit here. Let's tilt the screen. Okay, your feet are going to be like a little bit wider than hip distance. And your arms are going to be stretched out shoulder height. Now, I'm not going to mirror you because I'm going to be turning clockwise, just like you're going to turn clockwise, which would mean we're going to spin right. Okay, another important element of this is you can either have your head still, gazing down, or you can turn your head and gaze towards your right fingertips. Either way, we're going to spin around 7 times, and it's not like a hippie dance. So use your feet, take your time, so that you're not getting dizzy or lightheaded. And I'll do the counting whether or not you're with me or not. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know the arms may start to feel fatigued, but remember this is bringing in strength. If you need to stack the hands to the hips to modify, then do that. 5, 6, imagine doing 21. This is why we're keeping it gentle. We're just gonna do 7. And then this makes my 7th. Hopefully you're with me. And then relax your arms down. All right, turn your palms to face out in the anatomical position. And just let your shoulders, arms relax. Get grounded in your feet. And I'll explain. I've done research on the 5 Tibetan rites. They actually don't explain why they move clockwise, but I think I know, because a lot of this is rooted within yogic ideas, concepts, and philosophies. The idea of the chakras being aligned and balanced is that energy vortex is spinning clockwise in the body. So my only thinking is the spinning here would be to help to manipulate the vortexes inside the body to start spinning that direction as well, which makes us feel more aligned, more harmonious, more pure, more centered, and whole. Okay, that was the first one. The second one, coming down to our backs. Now, don't lie down yet, because I'm going to show you something. So when we're on our backs, and this is what makes the Tibetan rites a little bit differently than your regular yoga practice. So sometimes I'll have us have the hands facing down, and we'll point the feet and pike the legs up, and then we'll flex and lower, right? But in the 5 Tibetan rites, we're actually lifting the head and shoulders up at the same time. So what I want you to be aware of, if you're only using your neck muscles, that's going to be a lot because the head is heavy. And I don't want you to get a tension headache. The idea here is to use the rectus abdominis muscles in the core of the body so that when you're squeezing those muscles, you're naturally going to lift and you're not straining your neck. If you find through this exercise, you're starting to put it all in your neck, I suggest just keeping the head to the floor and don't bother with it, okay? All right, now lay down and join me. And the palms are beside us. And we're going to inhale, lift the legs, contract the core so the head and shoulders lift as well. And then as we exhale, we lower down through the head and the feet. Inhale, lifting, contracting the belly. Exhale, descend. Please don't rush it. That's 2. 3. 4. 5. I feel like this one takes more concentration. 6. Last one. And 7. Awesome. All right, separate your feet. Take the arms overhead like we did earlier with the arms in that Y-shaped position. Close your eyes and breathe. So with all that core contraction, if the arms overhead can stretch out the spine, notice it also stretches out the belly. Breathe in that deep diaphragmatic way. All right, and as you exhale, let's go ahead and come back to Apanasana, that wind release pose. Let's roll to one side of the body and gently come up. If you have a blanket, you're probably going to want it to pad the knees unless you're on carpet. I have a very thin rug and a very thin mat, so I know I need some extra padding. So I'm just rolling up my mat to provide that. The next one is camel. However, camel, again, is going to be approached differently than you would say in a regular Indian designed yoga class. Remember, this is more Tibetan. So the same idea applies to the shins. You want them parallel. My heels flop out, so I have to turn my heels in. I don't know if you could see that rolling action. Now, typically, especially in gentle class, I'll have us place the hands here at the low back so that we have a little bit more command and control on how much lift and back bending we're doing. But that also is a great way to tuck the tailbone and to keep the thighs perpendicular to the floor. The Tibetan Rites is different. So it looks like this. The hands hang down to the thighs. We still tuck the tailbone and shift the hips forward, bow back on the inhale. When we come up on the exhale, we erect the spine, but then bow the head, chin to chest. Okay, so it is different. We're only doing 7, okay? So inhale, shift your thighs forward, back bend, and then exhale, come up and lower chin to chest. Inhale, puff up the chest, rock your thighs forward, head back. Exhale, come up, chin to chest. That's 2. Let's keep it going. So again, keep it gentle. Don't try to be too dramatic with your back bends. This is 5, 6, and 7. Now, I always feel like after that set of the Tibetan rites, I need child's pose as a counter. So that's what we're going to do here. You can slide your arms out in front of you, or my preference after that sequence is the more traditional way, wrapping the arms around the legs resting more on the hairline versus the midpoint of the brow, so that your back is slightly rounded, like a tear shape or egg shape. Now rest here for a moment and breathe. And allow the muscles alongside your spine that we're really having to engage in the back bend to soften, to relax. Affirming as you hold, I now relax from all outer involvements into my own inner haven of peace. Okay, that was our third Tibetan rite. We have two more. Let's slide the hands beside the knees and press up. And we're going to come down onto our seat with the legs out in front of us. All right, so this is Dandasana, right? I want you to see the similarity of the shape to what we initiated on our back, right? And I like to bring this up on occasion for anyone who's wanting to develop a home practice or maybe traveling or find themselves in a vacation home with a nice deck and a great view, and they want to strike some poses. If you just know one yoga position, you could literally turn and flip it in different directions and you'll have 4 or 5 poses to work with. All right, so staff pose. You're going to flex your ankles. The toes are pointed towards the ceiling. The knees are slightly squeezing, quads defined as you're pushing down through your thighs. Now have your hands resting slightly beside you and lift up your chest. All right, already this is just the staff pose, and this can be a lot of work. But this is the beginning of the next Tibetan rite. The hands are going to be beside us, and it looks like this. We shift forward and up to reverse table or altar, and then we squeeze the belly to bring our seat back and sit up in Dandasana. So I do inhale to table, exhale to this position. We've got 7. All right, let's begin. Please go at your own pace. Be mindful of your wrists and shoulders. This does require some weight bearing. That was 3. 4. 5. 6. Last one. 7. All right. Now, pull the feet together for a moment or in a cross-legged shape. And I want you to rotate your wrist. That reverse table's a lot, isn't it? So just circle the wrist, and then the opposite way. Shake it out. So imagine doing 21, right? It's not so gentle. But Tibetan monks in their 80s are doing this daily, but they've obviously built up to it. Bring the back of the hands together. They probably don't have as much sugar in their diet either. I had my sweet tea this morning, so I'm feeling it in my joints, right? And the 5 Tibetan rites were to help with joint pain. My diet, it's what's causing my issue. Okay, turn the hands in towards the heart, up towards the chin. Feel that counter position. And I wanted to do this because the 5th Tibetan rite also requires some weight bearing, but it's going to be more familiar. All right, let me give you a demonstration about this and a little discussion. David Williams, who you may or may not know, is a famous yoga teacher. He was the first person, like in the early 70s, to go to India to work with Patabi Joyce, who learned the Ashtanga series. And he brought it back to America. And then he would encourage those teachers to come over to America. And then it started spreading through the States. But he told me, we brought him into Half Moon years and years ago. And at that time, he had just turned 60, I believe. And he was saying, in Up Dog, I'm going to give you a demonstration real quick. Up Dog, the American way, is toes tucked and the hips and knees hovering over the mat. And so that's the way I had been doing Up Dog. But he gave us permission by saying in the 70s, when he was going back and forth to India learning the sequence, or the sequence of a sun sow, he said everyone in India and his teachers taught knees down to the floor. And there's a big difference between the two. Here, you're going to feel the American way is super stiff. But the encouragement of knees down on the floor gives you more freedom. You can play around with that if you want. Basically, I'm sharing that tidbit of information because ever since David Williams taught me knees down, I don't lift the knees unless I'm in another class and the teacher instructs it, and I just do it out of respect for the teacher. All right, so we're gonna start in downward facing dog. So in our downward facing dog, from a tabletop position with your hands slightly beyond your shoulders, push up into this pose. This is actually going to be our out breath. The in breath is going to be up dog. So when you're ready, inhale, shift your shoulders forward like plank, but drop your knees, untuck your feet. Keep your arms long, gaze up. Exhale, roll it back, downward facing dog. That's one. All right, then continue this flow of movement. Up dog on the in breath to down dog on the out breath. That's two. Try not to speed it up or rush it. Three. Five. Six. And seven. So 7, right, is a lot. 14, obviously more. 21, which is what the Tibetan rites do. Obviously, you have to build up for it, right? All right, let's bring the knees down, untuck the toes, come back into child's pose. You can do it the traditional way or arms out front. This way the weight is off your hands. You can slow your breath, slow your heart, slow your mind. When you're ready, coming up. All right, we're ready to restore a little bit. So I want you to find your bolster. Mine was out of the way. We're going to place that bolster across the mat in front of us. Leave some mat on that forward side because that's where your torso is going to go. Now, your hip points are going to land at the forward part of this bolster. So it's more your thighs laying over the cushion, and your belly is hanging off. I like to separate the feet, and then you can cross your arms and bring the head down. But I also see people doing this number, opening the arms and turning onto one cheek. This is the variation I'm going to do today. If you join me, I will eventually say swap and turn your head. So find what's going to work for you. Thighs over the bolster, hip points at the edge. Close your eyes and breathe. So now that I'm on the side of my cheek, I actually don't prefer that, or at least my neck's not happy with it today. So please know if you get into that position and your neck is saying no, come back to your brow. Rhythmic breathing. Rhythmic breath will help you to avoid getting entrapped by your thoughts or sucked into any distractions in your environment. You have been resting on one cheek. Please turn your head, face the other way. Let's slip the hands under the shoulders, push up through table. And when you come back onto your seat, I want you to splay the legs out. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do this. Probably the most simplistic way to do this, since you have the bolster ready, is to just stack it underneath your brow so that you're just slightly tilted forward and you're just getting a minor stretcher sensation through your inner thighs and hips. We don't want anything extreme. But please know, if you have a chair around you, like say this blue chair for me, I could like back away from it and fold a little deeper with the hands and brow on top. So try your hand at this pose, see what props you need. So in the chair, I usually have the arms up. With the bolster, I usually let the arms hang down. Remember, the restorative approach is to let go, to not have to work, to not feel as much. Exhale, slowly lift out that position. And this bolster, hopefully yours is not rounded, because the round ones are pretty thick. And maybe thick is good for you, but I like the thinner, more rectangular ones for where I'm taking you next. And it's holding that bolster between your knees and feet, supine on your back, and then letting the knees roll to the left. You could also use a block, I guess, but I like the way the bolster actually travels down to position both the feet and the knees. Now draw the legs through center. And if the bolster is heavy, you can remove the bolster, and then you can turn the knees and then place the bolster in between after that. To consider what you'd like for Shavasana. Would you like bolster under the knees? Bolster under your spine? Once you have an idea, you can rearrange your body. Take this final resting pose. Affirming bones, muscles, movement. I surrender now. Anxiety, elation, depression, any and altering thoughts, I now give over to the hands of peace. Peace, be still. Be still and know that I am. Just inhale, reach the arms up overhead. As you exhale, hug your knees back in. Roll across to one side of your body. Form a comfortable seat. Bring your hands to prayer. So this week I've introduced you to the dragon dance, a combination of Indian and Taoist yoga. And today the 5 Tibetan rites. There's so much to explore about this practice. So much physically, but there's also so much philosophy to back it up. Let's continue to live and be yoga as we depart from this class today. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste.